So good evening. My name is Jessica Guido. I'm the Ticket Sales and Operations Manager here with the Tri-City Valley Cats. The program is going to start and we'll have our panelists talking as well as a Q&A at the end of the program. If you do have questions, please save those until the end. But if you would like to submit those in the chat box, I will read them on your behalf at the end, or I will call on your name at that time and we can address the appropriate panel at that point. With that, I will turn it over to Rick Murphy with our opening remarks.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule and joining us tonight for our annual Coach to Coaches, this year virtual style. As the Capital Region's professional baseball team, the Valley Cats want to be a resource for the baseball community. Our goal through this outreach program, which tonight is part of that, is, you know, the Coach to Coaches is to make sure that we've created a community and a platform that promotes and grows the game of baseball. I would like to thank our front office for coordinating tonight's event, Matt Callahan, our general manager, Michelle Skinner, our assistant general manager, Jess Guido, our ticket operations and sales manager. Tonight, we've assembled a panel of coaches that bring decades of experience as players and coaches. We've divided tonight's program up into 4 segments. You'll hear from each of our coaches. They'll talk about fundamentals and proper techniques, their experience in the game of baseball as coaches, as players, the importance of creating a fun and engaging environment. Baseball is a game. We're going to learn tonight over the next hour some of the valuable lessons that our coaches, from when they're playing days to when they're coaching now, and hopefully you can take some of this knowledge with you as you move on, whether it's this summer, as you're coaching youth baseball. But it's a good platform for us. And at this time, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Matt Callahan, our general manager, for introductions.
Thanks, Rick, and good evening, everybody. I'm just going to share some quick background on each of our coaches and panelists. Thanks, everybody, again, for being here. We're excited to be able to do this, even though we're not able to do it in person. First, we're excited to have our new field manager, Pete Incaviglia, joining us tonight. Pete brings over 35 years of experience in professional baseball, including a 12-year playing career in Major League Baseball. And since 2001, Pete has held a variety of coaching and managing roles within professional baseball. His resume as a coach and as a manager includes 3 championships in the American Association and Atlantic League, and hopefully several more to follow here in the Frontier League with the Valley Cats. So thanks for being here, Pete. Excited to have you. Next, we have Garrett Barron. Garrett is the former head baseball coach at Albany High School, as well as a Section 2 All-Star coach. Barron also has coaching experience at the college level as an assistant with UAlbany and in several collegiate summer leagues, including the Coastal Plains League and the New York Collegiate Baseball League. We look forward to hearing from Garrett on the defensive side of the game tonight. Thanks, Garrett. Our lead hitting instructor for tonight is Joe Mahoney. Joe was drafted in 2007 by the Baltimore Orioles and enjoyed a professional career that spanned 7 years. Mahoney made his Major League Baseball debut with Baltimore in 2012 and also had a stint with Miami Marlins in 2013. The first baseman is a graduate of Catholic Central High School and played his college ball at University of Richmond. Welcome, Joe. And our final introduction is our starting pitcher for the evening, Ryan Cameron. Cameron pitched for 10 seasons in professional baseball after being drafted by the Colorado Rockies out of UMass Amherst. He averaged nearly a strikeout per inning during his career that also included time with the Red Sox and the Phillies. Ryan now owns and operates Ryan Cameron Baseball to provide professional pitching instruction and league player development consulting. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ryan to get us started as he's taking the lead on our pitching segment. So thanks, Ryan.
No, absolutely. And if I could, Rick, just real quick, I just want to say thank you to you guys, right? This is a great time every year. I'm glad to be a part of this. And, you know, the Valley Cats do so much for this community with regards to putting a great product on the field in terms of us to go consume, and also for the things that you guys do to contribute to the youth around this area. So it's a great program. I'm really proud to be a part of it. So just a big thank you to all you guys at the Valley Cats for doing this every year and helping out these local coaches. I've got my 10-year-old here, 11, sorry. She's going to help me out. Right up here, kiddo. There you go. You got it? All right. So, one of the things I'm passionate about, Rick mentioned it in his opening remarks, is around fun. I think the biggest thing we miss sometimes in this zest for scholarships and professional careers is really what the meaning of sports is, especially at the youth level. You coaches are going to be challenged in so many different ways. And, you're going to have kids that run the gamut of, skilled, unskilled, competent, not competent. So it's going to be a challenging thing. And most of you are probably volunteering. You probably played at the high school level. You might have played at the college level. But at the end of the day, I think you're put in a situation where you're trying to figure some of this stuff out. And you being here tonight is representative of your commitment to do that. So I applaud you guys for that. But again, back to what you're going to face this year. If there's something you're going to write down, write this down. Repetition equals skill equals confidence. You're going to have a handful of kids in your lifetime that you're going to see that are just confident. Most of them, a vast majority, need to go through the process of putting in the reps so they develop the skills so that they get to the level of being confident. Youth baseball is full of kids that are nervous. Professional baseball at times is full of it. But the reality is it's nerve-wracking, right? You're in a game that it comes at you really fast. These skills are really hard. I mean, Pete will tell you, Joe will tell you, Barrett will tell you. It's 2,000 repetitions to create a habit, 2,000 to break a habit, 10,000 to make it an unconscious movement. It's a lot of repetitions. That's what these major leaguers do. It's what Pete did every single day for 12 years in the big leagues, repetition after repetition. Because what we're trying to do is repeat something over and over consistently. As a pitcher, I'm trying to go through a motion and release the baseball every single time in the same spot. An inch of deviation in this release point can be up to 12 inches at home plate. So it's a big deal if I land here this time, I land there that time. I have no command, and you guys understand at the end of that pitch is a uncontrollable and undesired result. So it's all about the consistency of the motion and repetition. You got kids. Doing the same thing over and over and over again with kids is tough. You might lose some focus. So you got to keep it jazzed up as a coach. You got to find creative ways to do these things, and don't be afraid to do that. I think you want to emphasize the absolutes, the things you're trying to teach. But if there's creative ways, cool ways, competitive ways to get there, absolutely throw that stuff in there and make sure these kids are having fun and that your practices are full of reps. One drill I particularly like, it's a point of emphasis that I'm huge on with pitching, is stride distance. If you're not getting to your stride distance, a whole bunch of things break down in your delivery. So for instance, if I land short, right, you want the arm circle. As soon as my foot hits, I'm essentially now ready to go to home plate. So if my arm's not in the proper position, my body has to do something, or I have to introduce effort to deliver the arm to the slot now. Effort equals tension, and you start to get all kinds of awkward. And with kids, a lot of them, they don't have the core and they don't have the leg strength you see with the guys, that are going to be suiting up in the Bronx here in a few weeks. These kids, their strength is questionable, and you're putting them on a hill, you're giving them the same baseball. So how do we get them to be able to repeat that motion? This drill, grab anything, a magazine. This is one of those old rubber pitching rubbers. Throw it down. From the very front of that, you count 6 heel to toes. Mark that off. You can use a baseball or whatever you want to use. Reason 6 heel to toes, basically your height. Okay, what we're trying to do is use that as a point of reference. You want to stride 80% or more of your height. Okay, the goal here is not to get every single one of these kids to reach that the first time they do it. It's a process, right? So now what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to reach for it. That's not what we're trying to do either. We're working from the backside. So we want to get them to a balanced position, head over the back hip. And we want to teach them to stay back and reach from the backside. So notice how nothing here has gone forward. I've done it all in the bottom half. Okay? This is hard to do virtually. I hope you guys can see it. But again, head and back hip, kind of reach with that front side. You can kind of see how it is. My head is still on the backside of my body.
it's a pivot, it's a pitch. Okay. This one right here, again, from the front, 6 heel to toes, mark it off, and you start trying to get these kids to work without reaching for it to get to that stride distance. As a coach, throughout the year, as you reinforce the stride distance, a couple things to look for. The baseball is going to tell you a lot about how they're doing. The ball's up to the arm side, down to the glove side. If they land short, 2 things have to happen. I've either got to pull the front side, there's that arm side up fastball, or the hand kind of goes to the ear and I push it down to the glove side. Those 2 things tell you that. And every night when I was pitching, I'd throw a pitch. I basically knew immediately what I did here, and that was what I always came back to. So I throw a pitch, it's up to the arm side, I got to stay back. I got to get that back side, and I got to get through working back to front. Okay, if it's down to the glove side, same thing. Constant reminder. The reason this stuff matters is because it's a simple thing for them to go back to. We create all kinds of gimmicks, we create all kinds of tools, different things that confuse these kids. It's really that simple. Get to the top of your motion, keep your head with your back hip, reach with the front side. If we do that, now the mound in the lower half is doing all the work, delivering the arm to deliver the baseball. And you'll get great extension, nice loose free delivery. So Rick, that's what I had. I know we were limited from a time standpoint, but that was the big drill I wanted to emphasize tonight. I will send a video over to you guys of that you can post.
Ryan, thank you so much. Pete, do you have any comments that you'd like to make on the techniques and tips that Ryan just gave us?
Yeah, I mean, I like what Ryan's talking about, there's a play on words when you're teaching. When you say stride, you think forward. When you say reach, you stay back on that back side. So I like that a lot, Ryan, when you say reach with that front side, because that tells that kid that weight has to stay back in your head behind, on your hip when that front foot hits. Pitching's a lot like hitting. It's the same thing as when I talk to my guys, I completely have to change my vocabulary, because when you say stride, immediately all their weight goes to their front foot. But if you say reach, they understand to keep that weight back, so that gives you balance and athletic balance in your legs to where you can deliver the baseball or swing the bat. The second thing I will say, my biggest pet peeve and things that I've learned along the way, is the only thing you have to take into the game is the way you practice. And your bullpens, your BP should be going at full steam, 100%, the same way you would go at it in a game. I know a lot of guys that just go out there and throw touch and feels. Well, it's hard when Ryan's talking about repetition. If you're not pitching like you're going to pitch in the game, if you're not taking BP like you're going to hit in the game, okay, that's 2 different rhythms and timings. So my biggest pet peeve is whatever we practice is going to be exactly the same way we're going to take it in the game. That's the only thing that I would have to, add to Ryan. But that was very good, Ryan. Really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Great, thank you, Pete. So with that, we will get to the next part of our program, featuring Joe Mahoney, and he will touch on some aspects focusing on the hitting. Joe, go right ahead.
Thanks, Jessica. I appreciate it. So again, kind of echoing what Ryan said, Rick, everybody over there, a lot of people have asked me recently, what do you think? Independent league? I said that the product's going to be better. I'm sure Pete can kind of attest to this. I looked at the roster a few days ago. I'm looking forward to coming to games. You got guys with big league time. The brand of baseball, in my opinion, is going to be better, cleaner, with some really good players. So I'm excited to go. I appreciate you guys putting this together. I grew up half a mile from the stadium, so I know when it was built when I was a kid, and I know Valley Cats means a lot to this area. So I appreciate everything you guys do. I'm not going to stand up like Ryan did because my body probably won't fit in the camera. But, you know, I want to touch on a few things. It's kind of funny, you know, Garrett and we've been getting together on Sundays with our daughters. They're 7 years old, and I have a 5-year-old son. So I'm kind of getting thrown into this in a different aspect of baseball, and it's really opened my eyes, to be honest, about coaching and, you know, perspective, because I was always on the player side, right? You know, I've done lessons and development and clinics and that type of thing. But really kind of getting into the head of young kids is fascinating, especially when they're your own kids, which I think a lot of people on this call, it's probably your kids and their friends. So, you know, things I've picked up just from coaching T-ball and, you know, Classy Lassie softball is, you know, keep them busy, keep them entertained. You know, obviously with the older kids, it's different. In those young age groups, you know, people ask me, well, what are you working on with your son? I said, he's 5 years old. I'm trying to make sure he's putting the glove on his right hand, you know, and he knows to keep his hands together when he's hitting, that type of stuff. You know, obviously it changes as you get older. You know, a big thing that I always learned going through the minor leagues and even in the big leagues with some really good hitting coaches, you know, players aren't robots, you know, so to an extent, you can teach the mechanics, you know, but making small mechanical changes, but at the same time, you know, doing your homework, and it's a lot to ask as volunteers, but, you know, what are certain pain points for kids that, you know, their personality, you know, that their swing is just way too long. You know, they're hitting everything to left field as a left-hander. You know, why is that? Well, you know, there's little things that you can fix. You know, I always focused on, and I focus on still with my kids, is teaching them the game, making sure they enjoy it, because no one's going to want to go back to the field if they're not having fun, right? I mean, it's like anything else. If you hate it, you're not going to keep doing it. You know, and keeping it simple, kind of like Pete mentioned, you know, practice, practice, practice. And then when it gets to the game, it should feel like second nature, right? And then you can focus on things like situations and, you know, your mindset at the plate and, you know, being a team player and doing the right thing and, you know, pitch selection, swinging at strikes, almost simplifying it to the fact where it's not, you know, get your elbow down, get your foot down earlier, maybe one thing, you know, like that in game. But I've been a firm believer that during games, you know, mechanical fixes are very, you know, you can't fix them between innings. So that's the joy of practice, right? You get the repetitions in and you have your progressions when you go to practice. You know, as kids get older, you know, you do your tee work, you do your one-hand drills, you know, you progress to soft toss and you work on pitch selection and staying back and, you know, take a few the other way, go up the middle, pull a few, you know, home run round. I mean, it's, you know, from 12-year-olds all the way up to when I was 27, you know, when Tino Martinez was my hitting coach at Miami, you know, the preach is the same thing, you know, do what you can do, stay within yourself, you know, and I think that kind of echoes in the younger levels. You know, kids are who they are, they're going to develop, and, you know, sports is an important part of development, not only physically, but, you know, mentally, emotionally, and psychologically. So, you know, going into stepping back a little bit in terms of drills, you know, we're all creatures of habit, kind of like Ryan said. You know, I was always the 21-day rule. You know, it takes 21 days to turn something into a habit. So, you know, if I was really working on things in the cages before the game and before batting practice, if it was, you know, my top hand wasn't working the right way and it was getting lazy, so I would do my one-hand drills and I would emphasize that for 3 weeks. And, you know, eventually I would see the change in the game. I mean, obviously quicker than 3 weeks, but you don't have that much time in professional baseball to make that change. But, you know, younger, you have that plan. So, you know, that's really all I kind of have. I always emphasize progressions, even when I have done lessons in the past. You know, make sure your tee work is clean, make sure your soft toss is clean, take it out to the field for batting practice, and you'll see results in the game. So, you know, I'll keep it short. I'm not going to, again, I don't want to break windows in my basement, but I appreciate everyone's time, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, Joe, thank you. We appreciate that. Pete, did you have anything you'd like to add to what Joe said?
No, I thought Joe did a really good job on kind of elaborating. You know, when you're talking hitting, you know, it really all depends on your age groups. I mean, if you're dealing with young kids, I mean, it's about keeping them moving, getting their attention and making sure they're always doing something. There's no stand around time for the young kids. You know, they like to get out, swing the bat, throw the ball. It's meant to be fun at those younger ages and to try and get kids to fall in love with the game. I mean, because you know, when you ask Ryan or you ask Joe or myself, you know, as players, I mean, we played the game because we loved it, and we learned to love it when we were young kids. You know, now as you progress to the older ages, there's so much information about hitting techniques out there that for me, these kids are pounded with so much information, and I think, you know, for me, it's always the mental preparation for me that I would add. You have to find out what exactly your kid's strengths and weaknesses are. I mean, I have big league guys that, you know, come to me in indie ball and they don't even know what their strengths and weaknesses. So it wouldn't surprise me that young kids don't know their strengths and weaknesses. I mean, some kids handle the ball up in the zone better. Some handle the ball lower in the zone better. Some guys handle the ball middle in. Some guys handle the ball middle away. I mean, you have to define that and find that out about, you know, each individual. And then if you can get those kids to stick to their strengths, good things happen, dealing from a point of strength, rather than weakness is a good thing. I think a lot of people dwell on mechanics of things that players can't do. Why don't we, stick to their strengths and, develop them that way to where, confidence breeds success. So for me, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to watch, my player, whether he's a young guy, old guy, I'm going to see what he does well, what he doesn't do well. And I'm going to try and get him to understand, to prepare for an at bat. You're going to the plate. Okay. What are you thinking about? Well, for me, my players, we hunt the fastball. That's what we do. We hunt the fastball because you can't play in the big leagues if you can't hit a fastball. You can learn how to hit a breaking ball. You can learn how to hit a slider. The at-bats will teach you how to hit the other pitches, but there's nobody in the big leagues that ever plays in the big leagues that can't hit a fastball, right, Joe?
Right.
Right. So that's all I would have to add on that.
Great.
Nice job, Joe.
Thank you both. So the next portion of our program will feature Garrett Barron. We will go to him in regards to fielding. Garrett, feel free to take it away.
Thank you, Jessica. And thanks again, Rick and Valley Cats, for having me. I've been doing this for many years now, and he always seems to sandwich me in here with a bunch of big leaguers. So I'm sure he can find somebody around the Capital District with some big league experience, but he keeps bringing me back. So I appreciate it, and I'm happy to be here. And I'm going to piggyback again on what everybody's kind of been saying about the game of baseball in general, and that is to keep the kids interested, keep them fun, keep the environment loose. My college coach, who was in the coaches, college coaching Hall of Fame, would always say green light, green light. And he would preach, playing in that green light zone and just staying loose and believing and having confidence and not being afraid to fail. And as you all know, in the game of baseball, there is a lot of failure. So, if you're not able to have that mental state, it can be an even tougher game than it already is for you. So, especially at the youth levels, like I said, mix it up, play little games, make it fun for the kids. It doesn't always have to be, repetition and practice at the young age. As much as you do have to take repetition to, like Ryan was saying earlier, to master, movement, when they're young, don't drill them. You know, you don't have to drill them as hard as they do when you get to the older and upper levels. So that's my take on the general, you know, scheme of things, especially at the youth age, and I'm starting to see a lot of it now as you know, I'm starting to coach, you know, my young kids. As far as fielding, you know, I'm going to show you a few things and, you know, hopefully get through a little bit of outfield and a little bit of infield. So I want to be quick. The main thing, you know, I would say when you're talking, I'm going to talk infield first. The main thing I would say is, you know, eyes, glove, and ball. Hear that, you know, everything is going to be lined up, you know, eyes, glove, ball. And you want to work through the baseball. And again, play on words like the guys were talking about before. You got to be careful what you say. And I like to say work through because it kind of incorporates, you know, in my mind, working with your, you know, with everything and working through the baseball and not push. I used to hear this, you know, a lot when I was in high school. I'll never forget it. My coach would say, push through the ball, push through the ball, push through the ball. And I was so focused on pushing through it with, you know, with my, you know, with my arm and my hand that, you know, I wasn't lining everything up. And, you know, as soon as you're going, you know, left or right, you're getting yourself into trouble when fielding ground balls. So a few drills that I like just to isolate, because you can go out there and take fungo after fungo and take a lot of ground balls, but isolating certain movements that are key when fielding ground balls is always something that I liked doing as an infielder, and then as a coach, stuff that we would do every day. So I like starting on your knees. I think this is a good spot to start. You have a partner who's maybe 5 feet in front of you, and I like to start with my bare hand because you want to feel, you know, you want to feel your hands. You want to feel the ball in your hands, and you'll see as I progress with some of this glove that, you know, when you're fielding the ball in your hand anyways, even with when your glove is on. That's where the ball should be fielded, here in your palm and not in the actual web of the glove, ground ball wise. So I like to start bare hands, and if you have a partner, they would just throw you, you know, balls like this underhand from 5 feet away, and you can do, you know, 5 in front, you know, and then you want to work left and right too. 5 to the left, you know, to your forehand side. Maybe 5 to the right to the backhand side. But, you know, everything is working through the ball no matter where it is. In front, 2 hands, to the side, left or right is kind of a one-handed movement. After, you know, you get some of those reps with bare hand, what I would, in a perfect world, you'd have a smaller glove than the glove you would actually use in a game, okay, to again, you know, start feeling, you know, being able to feel that baseball, you know, into that spot, getting used to fielding it, you know, here in the palm of your glove. And the reason, you know, I keep saying that is because, you know, fielding the ball here is going to help you to get your grip, okay, to get in there and get the ball without, you know, fielding it in the web and searching for the ball to get it out to make a throw. And then reaching in and grabbing the ball with your hand, and as you're pulling out, that's when your grip comes. Make sure your players know what a proper grip is, all right? This is one thing I would start at in practice. You know, have everybody show you their grip on a baseball, okay? A four-seam grip is how you, you know, with the seams here on the C of the baseball, kind of where they make the seams, and that's where your fingers are going across, and then your thumb on the bottom, okay? So that's always important in the youth. I've seen high school kids don't know how to hold a baseball properly, okay? And then getting them, you know, to make sure that their fingers are on top and their fingers are to the sky and thumb underneath the ball. Then again, just progress, you know, 5 in front, 5 to the left, 5 backhands, okay? And like I said, not everybody's gonna have multiple gloves. So if you want to use your real glove there, that's great. We also, you know, these are great. They're called flat gloves. You can get really nice leather ones that have like a little pocket in there, which are awesome. These ones we use, you know, at the high school level because they're cheap and we can get a lot of them. But these are good to use too. You know, everything when you're using the flat glove is you're going to work in front, you know, with both hands. And again, fielding the ball here in the palm. And then, you know, if you're a coach, what I would do next is I would go to the fungo and I'd give some pops off the fungo back to them, doing the same kind of thing with the glove on, you know, left, right, and backhand, you know, backhand, middle, and forehand. After that, you can have them stand up, you know, kind of progression, then they can stand up, and again, staying, you know, 5-8 feet away with the fungo bat, and again, just hitting, now that they're on their feet, you know, now they can start, again, getting ready to field, you know, a full ground ball. But again, you know, on their feet now, but working left, you know, forehand 5, middle 5, and then backhand 5. And it's important that, again, I'm emphasizing that working through, no matter what I'm doing, backhand, you know, forehand, okay, or in front. All right, and then I would back, you know, after those progressions, you know, then I think it's time to start backing up a little bit more and starting to take full length fungos. And that's where, you know, everything starts to come into, you know, into play as a whole. And, you know, starting to work with your feet and, again, working through the ball with your body now. So you have that balance now, your feet are under you. You're feeling your hands. Hopefully you have some confidence. And then, you know, you can still use, you know, if you do have those flat hand gloves, these are still good to use at you know, maybe not an actual baseball field distance, although some guys will. But again, you know, maybe shorter fungo work with the flat glove is a good tool to use as well. So again, if you're going to remember something about the infield portion, feeling the ball here, you know, in the palm of your glove, reaching in, getting your grip, and getting ready to throw. And then eyes, glove, ball, everything's always lined up, whether you're going to your forehand, right at your body, or to your backhand. Quickly on the outfield side, because I know I'm running out of time, and a lot of people don't spend a ton of time teaching outfield stuff. And, you know, it's a good idea to do outfield drills and not just take, you know, live BP, you know, having them shag balls out there during BP. That's great, you know, because nothing beats, you know, getting live reads off the bat. But again, isolating some of the movements that are necessary in the outfield is also key. So first, I would say ready position, and in the outfield, again, you know, it can get boring out there, especially at the younger level. So you know, every pitch having some kind of ready position, just like you would in the infield, whether it's left, right, or right, left. Some outfielders will jump, you know, a little jump in ready on every pitch. The other thing I would say from the outfield is to look in the hitting zone. When you're that far away, you're trying to follow the ball, coming from the catcher to the pitcher, from the pitcher to the hitting zone, your eyes are kind of all over the place. I played pretty much, you know, everywhere, you know, when I was playing, and I played a lot of outfield. And what helped me getting better reads off the bat was to focus on that hitting zone as the pitch came in, and then getting my ready position. Drop steps are key as far as getting you to a ball. So working on that drop step left or right is an easy thing to do. You can use something like a bat or a towel and put it here. You don't want to have any wasted movement as an outfielder. So, you know, what the bat will do here is just help me focus on that first step, whether it's from my right or my left, okay, and not any wasted movement forward or sideways, okay, and then just working on that drop step, whether I'm going left or right, okay. That's key in getting a jump to the ball. And then, you know, when the ball's in the air, staying behind, you know, tell your players, always stay behind the ball. Get behind the ball and then stay behind the ball. You'll see a lot of guys that will think they're in position, okay, but as that ball is coming, they're stuck in their spot, and now the ball's starting to get behind them, and that's when you'll see that move, and a lot of times ends up in disaster. So even if you think you're at the spot, that ball's still in the air. Keep staying behind that ball to give yourself a chance to catch it out in front. Okay, when catching, especially in the outfield, in a perfect world, obviously you don't want to block your face as you're catching the ball. Try to catch a little bit on the throw side, just slightly on the throw side. Because after you secure the ball, especially if there's a guy on base, it's time to get it into a cutoff man and back into the infield. So, in a perfect world, on a routine fly ball, even when nobody's on base, it's a good idea to get into that habit. Obviously in the outfield, a lot of times you're going to be, just getting into a ball, having to run after it, and I get that, but I'm just speaking of normal pop-up or fly ball routine catching. And finally, again, in the outfield, and just like I said in the infield, is working through the baseball. And again, as an outfielder, as I catch, okay, now it's time to throw. And again, I'm catching, working through the ball to get it in. A lot of outfielders will, I think most commonly are taught the crow hop to get the ball into the infield. It's crow or bro, so it's a crow hop or it's a pro step. The difference is, catching, and getting it in crow hop. A lot of times you'll see guys try to jump up. Again, to me, that's wasted movement. But a catch, okay, step right, left, throw. Okay, the pro step is more of a catch, step behind, and throw in. And people use them both. I think it's a comfort thing for kids. But those are the two that I would have my outfielders practice for sure. Ground ball work in the outfield is important too. Always fielding the ball off of your glove hand and stepping, getting rid of the ball quickly. So it's field off that left side, or your glove side, field, step through, ball's going. Hopefully within one step is your key there. So those are just quick little outfield drills, little infield drills that I think will help isolate some of the good movements, good habit movements that you'll need, come gameplay.
Garrett, thank you so much. A few people did mention that they do similar drills involving sponges or calling it the alligator drill. So it definitely is resonating with our participants.
Other balls are good to use during those drills too. Tennis balls are great, especially when doing, that barehanded work and stuff like that. And, the softer baseballs are always good to use sometimes when doing those drills, especially indoors. If you're working on a hard surface, those are good choices.
Great. Pete, did you have anything to add before we finish up with our fielding portion?
Yeah, I got a couple things. I thought Garrett did a really good job. For outfielders, a lot of coaches tend to say two hands. Well, if you use two hands, it restricts the movement of your right arm. So outfield and first base are really the only positions where you want to use one hand so you have complete motion of your arm. If I'm tracking it with my other arm, I lose distance, with my arm, the freedom of me using my arm, because as an outfielder, you need that freedom with your right hand. Secondly, the second thing as an outfielder is that as you get into your drop step and you get into running, a lot of outfielders tend to not pump their arms and not run. They kind of drag their glove like it's an 8-pound weight in their hand, and they don't pump their arms. As an outfielder, you run. And so, those are two of the things that I teach a lot of our outfielders that actually helps them, get to balls. There's no restriction in their movement, as an outfielder. The one hand thing is real important, and remember to pump your arms when you're actually running for a ball in the gap. Those are two big things I see mistakes on most of the time. Infield wise, Jimmy Leland was, Jimmy, when I was in Detroit, Jimmy had a pet peeve about no swipe tags. Umpires tend to call players safe on a swipe tag. So Jimmy would stand out there lighten up his cigarette and stand on second base and make sure all infielders put their hands down on each base. So they didn't, the umpire didn't miss the call, because umpires tend to, when they see a swipe, they're more apt to call the guy safe than if you just stick the glove down. So those are just a couple things that, I thought were important.
Great, thank you so much. So to continue with Pete Incaviglia, the Valley Cats field manager, he will go into the coaching philosophy portion of our program tonight. So Pete, go right ahead.
Well, I'll get right into it. The biggest thing you want to do, as a coach or a manager, depending on ages, is you got to create a culture where players can't wait to get to the field. Whether, you're in junior high, high school, college, minor league baseball. I mean, you actually have to get the players excited to come to the ballpark every day. How do you do that? It's not necessarily, by, doing fun drills or doing things like that. It's just, you got to remember you're the leader of the ball club, and your team is going to take on a resemblance of you. So, I mean, if you're, not having fun and you're not enjoying yourself, it's pretty good chance your players are not enjoying themselves too. So you have to set the example for the players. You come there, high energy, big smile on your face, having fun, hitting ground balls, taking BP, kind of cutting up with the kids, start building that relationship with the kids. And, especially at the younger ages, you want to make sure that these kids are becoming passionate about the game. They're really having a good time and they can't wait to come back. And that's the same type of thing that, I'm creating with, major league players. I get a lot of bitter guys who get released, out of AAA, and they all got a poor me story and all that. And, you have to try and get those guys to fall in love with the game again. And I know that I keep using that word, but, when you have passionate people that are doing what they love to do, and you can get them to express that on the field, you're going to get every ounce of talent out of that player. I know, my clubhouses are, the music's blaring in there and they're cutting up and they're having a good time. And, and I kind of let them have that place. That's their place. That's their home. That's their safe place. And when you do that and you give a little leash to these players, you start to see, their characteristics come out. You have you have quiet guys, you have real loud guys, you have, guys with, charisma and that are funny. But what you see is everybody's, characteristics come out in the clubhouse, because it takes all of that to make a ball club. You need a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You need a guy with some swagger, you need a quiet guy, but what they all do is they become worried about one thing, and that's the emblem on their chest and the uniform they put on together. I can tell you, as a big leaguer, I played in a lot of baseball games, and, I played in World Series, playoff games, all that. I don't remember any of that stuff. I remember the clubhouses, the bus trips, the things we did in practice, I mean, you remember all those things. So when I say, you build a culture, when you build that right culture in a place that's safe, fun, and, kids are having a blast coming to the ballpark every day, it starts with you. You have to be that guy. You have to be that high energy guy, with, you're going to have to put, if you had a bad day, you got to put that aside, man. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, these guys are looking at you to lead them. And if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, how can I expect my players to be doing what they're supposed to be doing? The product you get out of players is what you put into it. And if you don't put the time and energy every day, and it's hard, man, I mean, Ryan, you know, you coaching, you know, kids every day, and, you know, Garrett, you got a bunch of kids. You know what I'm talking about. You got to be a high energy guy, and you got to pick those guys up sometimes. And vice versa. You know, once the relationship gets good between you and your players, sometimes they pick you up. You know, sometimes, you know, they'll, you know, coach, you okay? Yeah, man, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you build those relationships. And I've always done this. You know, people ask me how I've been so successful as a coach or manager. It's because of the relationships that I make with my players. I care about them, not just as players, but I care about them as people. You know, you hopefully, you know, your players take something, you know, that they can use in real life. You know, I mean, that's what you want. You know, you want to kind of groom young men, and you want to be able to take what they've learned from you in your clubhouse and take it out in real life and be able to use that too in another career. Because, you know, building a baseball team or managing a baseball team or coaching a baseball team is no different than any other business. I mean, you're in charge of people, and, you know, you got to lead the way, and you have to be the guy that leads the charge in exactly what you want to have happen. So, you know, if you're in a practice and it's not going very well, pretty good chance you need to look in the mirror. I mean, that's, you know, if I don't have a good practice, I'm the first one I hold accountable, you know, because I'm saying, okay, it's got to start with me. It ain't them. You know what I mean? And some days, you know, I mean, life's tough, you know, for your players too. I mean, mom may be sick, you know, having girl trouble, or, you know, married, you know, I mean, little kids, you know, could be something going on at home. So you try to make that clubhouse and that culture a safe, fun, and the place to be. And that's the biggest thing for me. And I don't care what age group it is. It's important, because I can tell you right now, I can't remember how old I was when I played for the Phillies in '93. I mean, nobody had more fun than we did in '93. And, you know, we were picked to finish last in the NL East, and we got to Game 6 of the World Series. But, you know, it was just a group of guys in spring training. You know, Jim Fregosi created a culture to where he brought in a lot of people, you know, that he thought that would mesh really, really together. And, you know, when you're dealing with young kids, you don't have really that, you know, place to go where you can actually go pick and choose your players. You pretty much get who you get. Now, you know, I don't know how all those travel teams and all that work, but when we were kids, you know, you got put on a team and you went and played, you know, and you had a group of guys, and, you know, you're all wearing the same uniform. So, you know, the biggest thing for me, and, you know, and the one thing I would take is you have to build a culture that is safe and a happy place where players can't wait to come to the ballpark every day. To me, that's my responsibility, you know, as a manager, to make sure that we're doing things the right way and guys are having a lot of fun doing it.
Great, Pete, thank you so much. That was great. And thank you to the rest of our panelists for the other parts of our program as well. So moving into the final portion of our program, it is going to be the Q&A portion. And just in case anyone did sign on late, if you have a question that you would like to ask, please submit it in the chat, and I can either read it for you or call on you if you'd like. So feel free to start submitting those. I do have some that came through during parts of the presentation thus far. So to kind of get it started, and Pete, we'll start with you, and then if anyone else would like to chime in as well with their opinions. We were asked, how do you deal with mixed ages on teams? Obviously with youth leagues, there is a range usually that they are dealing with. How do you go about handling that, or how would you suggest handling that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, Jessica.
I'm sorry. We were asked, how do you deal with mixed ages on teams? You know, with youth teams, there is usually a range that you're dealing with, which means various skill levels as well. But how do you recommend handling that?
Well, I'm from kind of the old school a little bit. I think the best players should play, whether they're young or old. I mean, obviously, you want to make sure it's safe for your younger guys. Make sure that, you know, those younger guys, you know, aren't in any danger playing with the older guys. I wouldn't imagine that, those younger players wouldn't be in those mixed ages if they, were any safety issues. But for me, the biggest thing I would look for is make sure everybody can catch a ball, can defend themselves, make sure they have the reactions to make sure they don't, catch one in the coconut and while they're hitting, or, just make sure that they can, from a safety issue for the young players, as long as they're, there's no safety issues. I mean, to me, it's always about the most talented and the best players play.
Great, thank you. Ryan, Joe, or Garrett, did any of you have something you would like to add to that question as well?
I think I would agree with Pete. I think it's a challenge because I think in some instances you could have as much as a 4-year age difference, and when you're talking about kids, that's substantial. 9 to 12 or 12 to 14 or 15. And Pete hit the nail on the head. You should obviously put kids in a position where they can improve and earn opportunities to play more, but you got to reward the kids that are putting in the time and showing the skills to play. And I think as you do that, if you go back to Pete's comments about culture, if you create an environment that kids are having a lot of fun, and you're playing the better players, but the practices are engaging, repetition oriented, and they've got some competitiveness, you're going to see that secondary group really catch up quick, because it's going to create the right environment for those younger players or less skilled players to not only get the attention they need and the repetitions they need, but to be in an environment that encourages that development. And I think you'll see by the end of the year in that case, some of those kids rise up and start stealing some of that playing time.
Great, thank you.
Just one thing I wanted to add, if you're talking about age groups like that, like Ryan mentioned, usually there's a reason why the younger kids are playing up. Either they're talented, they're, a brother or sister of someone on the team, something like that. I always tend to trend towards doing stuff towards the older kids and letting the younger kids, if they're able enough, they're going to adapt, in my opinion, quicker to more advanced drills and that type of thing. I wouldn't go the other way and kind of dumb down drills or that type of thing for the younger kids, because I think they'll adapt quicker to the older age group.
Great, thank you. Garrett, we did have a question for you during the fielding portion. What do you recommend for foot placement when rising from fielding?
Well, I think it depends. If you're working, on a full length ground ball, it would be similar to what I was saying with the outfield is, having, your feet, are shoulder width apart. I wouldn't be, sometimes you'll see a third baseman maybe who's playing up on the grass, who gets wide and who gets low. But, for the most part, you're loose, you're on the balls of your feet. As the pitch is coming, you're left, right, and just, ready to go left or right if you need to, and not being blocked in, with flat feet. So as far as foot placement, I would just drill into them, loose, balls of your feet, ready to move. Even if you're doing stuff, where you're not moving left and right, you can still see where my feet are here and how they're loose and they're, I'm on the balls. I'm not locked into my heels, with heavy feet. Hopefully that answers the question. If you're talking left or right, it's really, if I'm working and not moving, your feet are, kind of can go, staggered, whether I'm working to my left or working to my right. But hopefully that answers it.
Thank you, Garrett. Our next question. So Joe, this might be a good one for you. What is the best stance to teach players to bat? This participant was told by a parent one year they're teaching the A-frame, but he was always told the 90-degree stance with the back elbow up was the way to go. What would your recommendation be?
When you're talking batting stances, you know, there's kind of like Pete said earlier, there's such a wide range. You know, you could Google batting stances and you're not going to be teaching Jose Altuve's scissor kick batting stance to a 12-year-old kid. You know, it's such a specialized thing. You know, I think you got to stick more to, you know, starting balanced, you know, 50-50, maybe 60-40 weight distribution, almost like you're playing defense in basketball. I'm not a big believer in elbow up. It never worked for me. And I think it's another one of those, I think it's hard to teach. I think it can sometimes cause bad movements and swings. But again, it works for some people. So, you know, not to kind of use a broad brush here, but I think you need to look at each kid and, you know, stick to the fundamentals, make sure their hands are good. They're in a good spot right off their back shoulder. You know, their hands are going straight to the ball. They're short in the back, long through it. You know, just kind of those standard things that you hear and that I've heard my whole life from really knowledgeable hitting coaches that, you know, I think that's more valuable than this is the way that every kid should hit, you know, open stance, closed stance, you know, being equidistant and, you know, being in an athletic position pre-swing and post-swing.
Great, thank you. Ryan, a question for you. What pitches are safe to introduce to an 11-year-old aside from the fastball and a changeup?
Boy, this is a tough one for me because I think what happens in a lot of youth contexts is you start playing to win and you stop playing to develop. And, you know, there's conflicting philosophies there. And I know a lot of these travel situations and the kind of the way youth baseball is structured now, you used to, you know, Pete was talking about when he was a kid, when I was a kid, right? It was a neighborhood thing and you played to win, but it wasn't kind of, you know, win at all costs. And I think today what you're seeing is there's a lot more emphasis on winning and results. And so you start seeing more of the you know, the pitches that do that for you. You know, as hitters are developing, the more movement I can put on the baseball, obviously the more success I'm probably going to have as a pitcher at those younger levels. I'm a firm believer, 100%, that the fastball and changeup are the pitches an 11-year-old pitcher should be throwing, period. You start introducing the breaking stuff, you start putting them in a position where developmentally they're compromised and they could wind up being hurt. And you could wind up long-term, you know, putting the kid in a position where he doesn't maybe get to experience a longer career, or maybe some of the things you actually want for them for the sake of striking out 12 kids in a game today. So for me, you know, learn the fastball, fall in love with the fastball. You know, Pete just said it, you know, these major league hitters, you don't get to the big leagues not being able to throw a fastball either. You can't get there not hitting them. You can't get there not throwing them. So at the end of the day, you know, you want to make sure these kids, you know, are comfortable throwing a fastball. They can command a fastball. And the changeup, to me, you know, is right there as one of the best pitches in baseball. I've never heard a pitcher tell me they like a good changeup. So if you work with these kids and, you know, there's some grips and there's some things, you know, if you send some, I can send a video over to Rick, or we could try to get some information to you. But there's a few real easy drills that just emphasize the right way to throw a changeup. And I think that these kids will really prosper from that. So.
Great, thank you. So we are just about to the end of our program. We have one final question, and Pete, I'm going to direct this one to you. What advice do you have for coaches to identify where to best position players on the field, and what are some key things you look for when fielding a new team?
Well, that's kind of a two-part question. For me, you know, when I'm fielding a team, you know, I want my most athletic people, probably one at shortstop, one in center field, my most athletic guys. Also want, you know, second base. You know, you want somebody who's, you know, nimble on their feet and, you know, can turn a double play. You know, first base is not necessarily a guy that I look at who's non-athletic. You got to remember, you know, nobody fields more balls or has to deal with the baseball other than the pitcher is the first baseman. So you want to make sure you got somebody over there who can move around and can do the things, fielding throws from third base, shortstop, and second base. Those three positions, and then obviously catcher's a big position. You want somebody who's can get on his knees and block a ball and receive a baseball. And once again, it's hard to answer that question because I don't know what age groups we're talking about here. Most of the time I'm talking from a high school, college to minor league, high minor league, AAA, AA guy. Is we want to make sure you have athletic people, especially at shortstop, center field. I'm always a big proponent of having a guy at first base who's athletic enough to receive baseballs. I believe a catcher should be very athletic behind the plate. That catcher can save you a lot of runs. Your one-step quickness guys, for me, or your guys in the corners in the outfield and third base, or your one step and a dive at third base. And, your corner guys are, going to be your, not your speed demons, necessarily, but guys that, probably have a little bit, offense over defense is usually the case. I mean, hopefully you have athletic people all over the field, but, sometimes, some guys can really hit, but, are not very athletic defensively. And, as everybody says, if they can hit, you'll find them a position. So, but, there's 4 or 5 positions that you can't hide. You can't hide first base, you can't hide shortstop, can't hide your catcher, you can't hide your center fielder. So, those are really, really important to have athletic, good athletic people at those positions. For me, as building a team, I kind of work the same way, as I want my teams to be able to do a little bit of everything. I want to be able to, steal a base when I have to. I want to be able to play ABC baseball and have guys who handle the bat and, move a runner from, second to third base and can hit and run a little bit. I want to have some guys that, can hit a 3-run homer every once in a while and change the momentum of a game. I want pitchers to be able to pitch to contact and throw strikes. I'm a big proponent on you can't defend a walk. So, I'm looking for guys. I'm not necessarily looking for guys with velocity. I'm looking for guys who can change speeds and have command and can throw the baseball where they want to. I don't think you see a lot of those guys left in baseball. You don't see a Greg Maddux or Tom Glavine or a Jamie Moyer or, guys that knew how to pitch. And I'm sure I'm missing some guys, but, guys that pitch to contact, keep their pitch count down, keep the game moving. When you got a guy that's going over there is pounding the strike zone and he throws 6 pitches and you're back in the dugout, that momentum switches, to your ball club. If the other team's, constantly in 3-2 counts. So it's really important for me to have guys that throw strikes, can change speeds. They're not guys that are always in 3-2 counts and walking people.
Great, Pete. Thank you so much. And again, thank you to all of our panelists. I'm going to go back to Rick Murphy to give some closing remarks.
Well, thank you to, the coaches tonight and for participating in our Coach to Coaches. Hopefully the coaches that were on the call tonight learned some things that they can take and implement into their own, for their own teams moving forward. We're going to send out, a survey in terms of how we can improve moving forward. What we'd like to do, obviously, is to keep this community engaged over time. So you'll be hearing from us next month in terms of scheduling another video conference call. So any feedback would be greatly appreciated. Again, I'd like to thank Pete, Joe, Ryan, and Garrett for their time tonight. And a lot of the information they provided was very useful and hopefully you folks enjoyed. So thank you very much for participating, and coaches, we'll see you out at the ballpark.